Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
Back at you and Gloves Off. I'm Paul Buitrón. I'm here with a good friend, Ian Scotto, and he's talking about his Battle Line podcast, right?
Yeah, man, absolutely. And and should I say the Professor Buitrón? I mean, I know that's your moniker. So
you know, Professor is my title in Savant. In the real world, my name is Paul, and
which I've seen because I've watched some of the recent videos, and I do. So I'll call you Paul.
And that's it. You know, when they placed it as Gloves Off with Professor Buitrón, they left it because it became that niche, and it just kept on going. But no, I'm just Paul for everybody else. How's everything?
Cool. All right, so I'll call you Paul. I'm doing great, man. I'm here on Long Island, New York, and just out here living life. Been working on that podcast along with my other projects and everything. And prior to us recording, we were talking about my colleague Chris Peranto, who you got to meet, and guy I've known for many years now. So yeah, it's an honor to be on here.
No, it's an honor to have you all, and continue doing what you all are doing, because all those stories need to be brought forth. They have to be recorded somewhere in fashion, and this is the best way.
I agree, man. I mean, with the veterans from years ago and decades ago, yeah, you could read their words in quotes in books. A lot of them didn't write their own books, but now it's like there's so many books of the GWOT veterans and even the Vietnam veterans, and then so many long form interviews that if you take all the long form interviews of a guy from another era, like let's say Green Beret Jim West, who we've had on, there's hours upon hours of footage and interviews of that guy over the years that like you could really get to know him and writing several books. So yeah, I agree. It's like this is their archive of what they've done and those war stories.
And you're absolutely correct. And you know, we tend to forget that America, you know, our nation, is built from veterans. They're the ones that keep it going forward. And I want to thank everybody for their service, and Chris as well. You know, he's a hero from us and everybody. And let's touch base on what is the actual goal of your podcast to get out there. Is it monthly? Is it weekly? How is it going?
Yeah, so we have a show up every Monday. So you and I are recording this on a Monday. So like there's a new show up today. Every Monday there's something new. It's very important that we just get something out there as, you know, consistent as possible. And yeah, I think the goal is just interviews with interesting people. As you know, it's not always veterans. We've had musicians on like Dave Silvera from Korn, formerly from Korn, or we've had Ted Nugent on, guys like that. We'll have all different types of people on the show, but a lot of them are veterans. A lot of them are special ops. And I guess the goal is just putting something positive out there and putting something out there that people could relate to. Chris and I are both always in agreement that there's so much negativity and split screen debate and divisiveness. And we wanted to do something that combats that a little bit and puts a positive light on veterans and America. And without like sugarcoating things. We talk about some very serious issues, but at the same time to know that, not everything sucks. Not everything out there is so bad.
Absolutely. If you have, here's something. We've all had our friend come back, and they're having some troubles. Which way would you all direct a veteran that's coming back and he's kind of not fitting in, or not wanting to fit in, or wanting to fit in and calling out for help? How can we get them some help?
I mean, it probably depends on the person. I know there's so many great veterans organizations out there like what you do. There's so many great different veterans groups where they can meet together with like-minded people, with people who served, and in all different communities. Like here, if I take a drive to New York City, there's veteran groups and there's VFW places here on Long Island. So I think that veteran to veteran connection is important, but also, especially in today's day and age, and I know there were like more suicides during this past year and a half, not being so attached to a computer and social media and all that. And and having those one-on-one interactions, going out in nature. I mean, I'm not a veteran. I never served in combat. But I could tell you that when I went, for example, to Lake George the other week, or when I went to Sedona, Arizona, just being out in nature, it's hard to hate life in those moments. And I think you don't actually hate life. You hate the drama going on, the anger that you see in the media. But I think when you look at this world and you look at what we have in nature and places like yours in Texas and all around this great country, like there's a lot to be appreciative for. And I think everybody has someone in their life that cares about them, and reaching out to those people, maybe not being a burden to them. And if you feel that you are, then you could always seek out professional help, and mental health is always important. But yeah, I think getting out in nature and doing your best to enjoy life.
Absolutely. You talk about suicide, and last year with the pandemic and everything and all the lockdowns and everything, that was something that we experienced here in Laredo, doing some stuff with a podcast, and had some counselors coming up and talking to folks. People would call me at all hours. They were losing their businesses. They were losing their homes. And let's get them some help, and let's start putting the community back together again. Let's see which way we're going to go in that direction. And understanding people, and because of the connections of the podcast with different individuals that we had interviewed, we started seeing that we started directing people to get some good help.
Yeah.
From the various organizations that were out there. In Laredo, we have something called Pillar of Laredo, which kind of helps in depression and drug addiction and all that good, all that stuff that's out there. And they'll do some counseling, and they'll help folks out. And I mean, we were sending people basically daily, basically in April. People were losing everything. And I think we need that. We need that understanding that people can call and say, you know what, I need help. Let's get you some help, man. We're here. That's what we're here for. That's why our city's here. That's why our community's here. That's being neighborly.
Yeah.
We're not going to brush you off and say, deal with it by yourself. We're here to help. Here's an extended hand. I was told this by an old, and he was a veteran also. And he said, the only time you bend over and look down at somebody is when you're trying to lift them up. So that's always stuck in my back of my mind. So we're going to look down at somebody is because my hand's out there to lift you off the ground.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think having that human connection with people that you trust, and people that aren't going to judge you, and that can bring positivity to your life is important. And I know for some veterans, talking to someone like you or I, it might not resonate. They need to talk to someone who served and who did the same thing they did. Absolutely. Because they'll say, you don't know what it's like to have to kill someone in combat. You don't know what it's like watching your friend get shot. And I don't know what that's like. I could do my best to listen, of course, and I'm not going to say I've been there before, because I haven't. But I think sometimes, that veteran to veteran connection of guys who served in combat is really important.
Out of all the guys that you've seen there, everybody that you've interviewed, what's a common denominator that we as a community, besides giving thanks for their service, we can do?
I mean, like I said, I think that's the same thing. I think just hearing out their stories and understanding where they're coming from. And if they do need to go further and meet with someone who's a professional or something, that there shouldn't be any shame in that. Some guys do need to be on some type of medication. Some guys probably shouldn't be. Something I've learned from interviewing all these guys is they go to the VA, for example, and it seems to be getting prescribed pills. It's like the quick fix for everything. And that should not be. Once again, there's no shame if someone needs that, for sure. But I don't think everybody needs that. I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with the drug industry in this country. It's a big money-making industry. And putting us all, I mean, the vast majority, I think, of Americans on some type of pill and some type of medication, it's not a good thing. So.
Absolutely. You see that. I grew up, there was no HDHD. What is it? ADAD?
ADD,
there was nothing like that. You got a ring on top of your skull. That's what you got. You get settled down, and you see that with the kids in the gym and the classes that we give, and you see them right away. You see the differences. All of a sudden, you don't need that. You just have to exert your energy.
I probably could have used that too, because I was diagnosed with ADD, which I don't know. I'm probably in agreement with you. I don't know if it's a real thing. But I was put on medication, and I wasn't as physically active as I am now. And yeah, I think I probably needed some of that in my life. I did get into track and all that later on in high school, and that probably was good. But yeah, I didn't get into like lifting weights or any of that until years later. And yeah, I'm sure that would have been a good thing. I think, especially, I hear this all the time, boys especially being put in a chair and told to be quiet for 7 hours a day and looking at a screen in a classroom. I don't think is the greatest thing for us. I think being up and physically active is very important.
Absolutely. I think so too. I think the education has to be changed a little bit different. When I'm gonna compare it. I was part of INSEP, which is the National Institute for the Professional Sports in France. It's like kind of like the Olympic team. Everybody went there, and everybody ended up getting a kind of like an associate's in kinesiology and physical education, the equivalent. But I trained in savate, which is French foot fighting for those. And you went to school around your training. Understand?
Yeah.
So in the morning, you did some rounds and you did this for about an hour, and then all of a sudden you had 2 classes. Then you came back and you sparred some more, and then all of a sudden you had 2 classes. Then you came back and did some more conditioning, and you had 2 classes. So you developed a mindset around your sport. Others did tennis, others did swimming, others did boxing, others did basketball, what have you. All the Olympians of France were in there, all right? And I was an American inside that school, because I was the first American in there, and I was allowed with a scholarship to be part of that. And you see the learning, you like learning. You see here in college, you have to go there 4 hours, and all of a sudden you might have a break. You understand what I'm saying? It's very monotonous. So having that activity within there kind of balances everything out. And maybe we might have to start changing our focus in how we educate our youth. Maybe have football. Okay, you're in football, but guess what? This morning you're going to do some weights. Now go to English and history. Come back over here and do your track. You know what? You're going to go back over there and do your other 2. Take it that way, instead of literally finishing the whole day and then going to after school practice at 5 o'clock and getting home at 8. Understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I another thing that I remember I saw in recent years, and it's funny for me to even say, because like I don't have children. It's not my world to tell people like this is how to raise children. I'm not in that world. But when I went to Colorado, like I went to Red Rocks and I went to Garden of the Gods, which is amazing to see. It's
Beautiful.
Not a national park, but it's like one of those national parks. And I saw a father with 2 of his kids, and as they were walking around and looking at this beautiful nature and also just getting some physical activity, not a run or anything, but just walking through. He was speaking to them about different subjects. They were asking questions. They were definitely learning something. I just kind of observed this from far away. And I thought to myself, I would have absorbed information better if it was going for like a nice nature walk like this, as opposed to just sitting in a classroom, same monotonous thing day after day. So I think getting outside, all of that. And now it's even worse because children are learning via computer screen. They're not even in a classroom with each other. I really hope that does not become the norm and everybody masked up in a classroom. I definitely hope we get back to where we were, and then beyond that, evolve into what you're saying, where we could add in some physical activity. Because a lot of kids' minds are restless, and that really would help.
Absolutely. Talking about the mask, we just send our kids back to school. And
so are they masked there or not masked where you are?
Well, Texas has no mask. You mask.
Okay.
If you want to wear a mask, you can wear a mask. The governor
exactly. Yeah.
He said
That's how it should be.
There's not going to be no lockdowns within municipalities or schools or what have you. But here they're forcing it back and forth. This past Friday, the mayor of Laredo and the health director came out. And they said that all the schools were quarantined. And then the school district turns around and sends a letter and says in a text to all the parents, "No, we're not." So I don't know. This has been politicized so much that it's going to break at some point, and that's the sad part. That's a sad part. Too much pressure, and it's just going to snap.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but folks, I think that if parents, this is my opinion, and that and a buck 50 might get you some coffee. And and what I'm saying is, if we have schools that can do Zoom already, because some of the schools were in some type of format like Zoom, right? If a parent doesn't want to let his child go to school, they should have the ability to connect to school at home. Understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. And I don't think that's going on here in Texas. They want everybody going to school. And I think there's a lot of folks that are still running around with fear, and they don't know how to control that fear, and they're just pulling their kids out of school. And I think that's going to be detrimental. I think there has to be some balance.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the politicization of everything has gotten out of hand. I agree with everything you're saying.
And that's my opinion. Others might think differently, but I think that's what's going on.
Yeah,
How is it
spot on.
How is it in New York? In New York, the schools open or they're not?
You know what's funny? I don't even know exactly because I don't have kids and all that. My friend Mark is a teacher though, right around here, and I do know he's teaching classes in person. So I think it might be the same thing where it's like, I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't want to say anything incorrect. So I know New York City is very different than here on Long Island, but I do think people are back in schools. So I know he is.
Or is there any mandates where you're at? Like restaurants
on Long Island or New York City?
Both.
Long Island is pretty much back to normal. New York City, it's the same stuff that you're hearing about, like the vaccine stuff. Although it depends where in the city. I mean, I was at a Met game last week with my dad in Queens, and they didn't check anything. Full capacity, no masks. So I think things everywhere are getting back to normal in some fashion. I don't know about like California. They seem to be like the most crazy right now, but I think elsewhere we're getting back to where we need to be.
Absolutely. But that's good that we have to. And I think you all have a good friend of mine, Curtis Sillywell from the Garden Angels. He's running for mayor out there, isn't
he? He is. I got to be honest. I don't think he has any chance, but I mean, it's good to see him out there, I guess.
Yeah. I saw him yesterday on a live, and he came down here a couple of years ago. We had a problem with we had a serial rapist here in Laredo. Wow. And he called me up and we touched base, and he flew down here with his guardian angels, and I said, yeah, go ahead, let's go. And we did a bunch of seminars and tried to teach women what to do, how to be awareness, and they never caught him. So who knows whatever happened to him, but he had raped within 3 months, I think something like 27, 28. It was terrible. It was crazy. It was crazy.
But at least you guys are armed there. That probably helps deter.
It changed today, right? Today's August 1st. No, September 1st.
August 30th.
It's 30th. Well, okay.
I'm looking at the bottom of my screen.
So September 1st, we're going to change a new law. We have a new law, so anybody can carry. You do not need a concealed carry permit anymore.
Yeah, that'll be good.
And you can open carry as well. So it just depends.
Are you a fan of open carry? I think I think it'd probably be better if more people were concealed, but that's just me.
I'm like this. Either or. If I'm going to go into a Starbucks and get into it with some liberal that all of a sudden says, you're wearing a gun, and get into an argument, conceal it. Understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not
going to push that into it. I've seen more women open carry than men.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't see. Everybody thinks that everybody's running around with open carry. I don't see.
No, but the people who are. I don't know if you remember. There was a picture a few years back that was that went viral of these two kids who went into a Chipotle. They weren't kids. They were like young adults, and they had like the AR-15 open carry. And I just don't, I'm not saying the law should get involved. I just don't think that's appropriate, I guess I would say. I mean, if I'm in a Chipotle and I see someone walking around with something of that magnitude, like open, is that really necessary? Do you really need to do that? You know?
It's not. I mean, I think they have something wrong in their head, but they put it
I
to
think it's
this
just
way.
people like to make a political statement. They like to say, I'm doing this just to prove I'm able to do this. And, I'm friends with Adam Kokash, who we had on the show, who is that same type of guy on some level. Adam has done open carry demonstrations like right near DC and the border to say, this is my
Sure.
God-given right. Why shouldn't I be allowed to do this? I understand that politically. I also think people should just use the common sense of like, when is this appropriate? When is it not? Are you going to just purposely piss off some people who might not be of the same belief than you? Because it gives gun owners especially a bad name, as opposed to the guy like yourself who is concealed carrying and just going about his day as usual.
Let me tell you another one. Here in the state of Texas, you can carry any size blade. Okay, so that means you can run around with a sword in your back if you want.
Exactly.
And there was an incident in San Antonio where some guy ran around with a samurai sword, and the police stopped him. Why are you running around with him? Well, I can't. Do you want to bring that attention to you? You know what I'm saying?
Some people love the attention, though.
You know what I'm saying? Do you want the police to come down here and for you to come out and have the 15 minutes of a viral video running around all social media? I wouldn't do that. You know what I'm saying? If I'm at the ranch and I'm carrying and I have one on here and I don't have I don't have it concealed, but I'm at the ranch. If you run to the gasoline station, you're kind of out in the boonies out there. Kind of people know that's going to happen. Understand what I'm saying? They're more acceptable. But if you run around Starbucks or Chipotle or with an AR-15 on your back, that's a little bit different. And
Yeah,
the law also says you're not confined just to one. You can carry as many as you can. Does that make you run around with 5, 6 wrapped around you? No. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And I think people should just take that into account that, it's just to do what logically makes sense rather than having to make a statement.
Listen, I'm all for the police. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm all I'm also that we do need some reform. We do need some reform.
Sure.
We need to protect our good badges, number one. Okay. What I'm getting at is right now, just like with the attention getters, you have a lot of folks that will run the stop sign. All of a sudden, the police stops them and they're filming them. Well, you just ran the stop sign. So now he's asking the questions, and you're in your car telling him, "I don't have to give you my ID," and they're filming it. You're just aggravating him, and you're making the situation worse.
Yeah.
You don't need that. Why do you want to put that onto you? Understand?
Yeah, I think the whole social media era and viral videos and Twitter, it's probably been both a good thing and a bad thing. I don't know which is I think is tipping the scale more, because there's the people who just like to aggravate and just want to have that viral moment. There's also the times that something was caught on video that otherwise wouldn't have, and they would have told you that it was made up. We've seen
Absolutely.
all different types of crazy incidents over the past few years, some that make cops look great, some that make cops look bad. Unfortunately, anything that's negative is always what's going to go viral, whether it's a veteran doing something stupid or it's a cop doing something stupid, which is in the vast minority. But the majority of those good actions never go viral. That's the sad part. So people's perception is going to be, the people, especially on the left, all cops are bad, because this is what they're seeing plastered on their social media, and they're following like-minded people who are only going to post that stuff. So their perception is completely skewed.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And there's a lot of things that we need to fix in all municipalities. Police is one of them. We have, like I said, we have to protect our good badges. We also have to protect our veterans. We have to protect everybody's around us. But how do we do that when you have some knuckleheads out there causing this trouble? Understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I see where Black Lives Matter came out with, defund the police. I see where they came up with that. I understand where they come up with that, but that's not the answer.
Of course not.
Understand what I'm saying? I understand what happened. Do we need reform? Yes, we do. We need to start seeing. We need to get rid of the bad apples, because it happens. That you get ingrained. All of a sudden, one becomes a clique, and that clique exists, and that clique goes out there and don't go behind us, and the good ones just become, they're close-minded, and they don't want to even look at the other guys, because they're just walking around with their head kind of turned. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that happens. So we have to protect them, and that happens in every station, and it happens everywhere, really, when you have that type of authority.
Yeah. Ideas, I think, with some type of middle ground, they just, in this day and age, it doesn't go viral. It's not what they're going to talk about on the split screen debate on TV. It's always anything extremist, right-wing extremist, left-wing extremist. Those are the ideas that circulate, because it's what sells. It's what sells advertising. It's and meaning when they I mean, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, it's not there to inform you. All these stations are there to sell advertising. They're there to sell people to advertisers. So the more crazy that the headlines are, the more advertising they're going to sell. If they give a perspective that's a little bit more moderate, that's not what people tune in for. And I think it doesn't mean you can't watch those, but I really don't. But watch them with a grain of salt, because it's not necessarily reality.
Absolutely, I fully agree with you. I fully agree. And well, how do we separate that? I guess that we need more shows like yours.
Thanks, and like you.
And to educate everybody that's out there, because your show is going to hit, let's say 100 people are going to pay attention to it. It might be viewed by many.
Hey, it'd be way more than that.
You know what I'm saying? And 100
Yeah.
will really pay attention to it, and say, you know what, I'm going to take that and I'm going to move forward with that.
Yeah.
Understand what I'm saying? Because people see something, they'll see the show, and they'll thumbs up and everything else. But how many really comprehended that what was going on there?
Yeah, I mean, Chris talks about it really often on the show, the fact that he was in the mainstream media a lot, and
Sure.
He was giving his viewpoint on things, and he feels like he was used for a lot of it. And it brought him to like his lowest point in life. And now he is an example of someone who never really watches any mainstream news, doesn't really tune in for it, doesn't obsess over this stuff, and spends more time with his family, spends more time out in nature, at the gun range, doing his thing, teaching people. And it's what fulfills his life a lot more. And yeah, I think it doesn't mean, and I always say this too, it doesn't mean bury your head in the sand. Don't be informed on what's going on. It's important to be informed on what's going on. It doesn't mean you have to compromise your values, if you're not watching this stuff all the time. But have some time for yourself, for your own mental health, doing things that you thoroughly enjoy. And I don't know about you, I don't thoroughly enjoy watching the news or the fake news, depending on how you want to put it.
No, absolutely. I haven't watched it in the longest time. Whatever I watch, if I'm on social media and something comes up, then I pay attention to what I'm saying. Okay, boom. But for me to physically turn on the TV and watch it, it's been years.
Yeah, and then also when you come across something, before you put it out there, just do your research, do your fact checking. If you're just seeing it on some obscure site, you might be getting duped. Find directly where they're getting this information from, because I see so much misinformation on all perspectives on social media. So once again, a lot of people's viewpoint is skewed because they're not even getting real information.
Absolutely, and they'll take something that and misconstrue that subject matter into something else that has nothing to do with that. You're like, wait a minute, that's not what they said.
Yeah, I see it all the time.
You just took 5 seconds of a 30-minute interview.
Yep, out of context.
You're exactly right, and you went off on it. You went off on a tangent. I think that's what's going on, and I think how do we do that? Does it come back to education? How do we bring back education to start comprehending? How many kids do we have out there that are going out into the workforce that cannot comprehend the English language when you read something? They don't understand what a contract is. They read it. Yeah, okay, I'll sign the bottom line, but did you comprehend what it is?
Well,
you understand what I'm saying?
I do. I'll defend younger people a little bit more though, because of the fact that I guess I'm the younger guy here, but I'm not the I'm not the Gen Z, younger people. So the one thing I'll say that's positive, because there is a lot of negative. I think there's less patriotism among younger people. There's more criticism of America where they don't see the great things about this country. But younger people are generally actually better right now at fact checking things. And it is the boomers, the people my dad's age who get duped by fake news and repost that stuff. And study after study shows that. So I do think they're better actually than the older generation at like comprehension and fact checking and cross checking information. I do think there's work that needs to be done on a lot of other things on seeing the greatness of this country and all that. And I think like a left wing agenda is being pushed on them. But I also don't want to say it's all bad. There's a few traits they have that may be better than the older generation.
Yeah, you're correct because I'm with my son and my daughter, and my son's 16, my daughter's 15, and I'm looking at something I'm driving, and I said this happened, and by the time a mile passes by, my son said, "No, that's fake news." He had already looked it up and Googled it, and she's like, "No, I'm finding it right here," and they start arguing in the back. It's just trying to see which one's the one that's correct.
Yeah, it's important, like finding direct quotes. Yeah, finding the direct quotes, finding the actual video of what went down, who said this information, do they have some sort of an agenda that they're putting out? Does the headline match the news? And all outlets are guilty of it too. So it's not just, if NBC says it's true, it must be true. I'll give you an example that I saw a few years back. I was learning about kratom. I guess you'd say it's a drug that, it's legal though, that a lot of veterans are using, a lot of people are getting on, but veterans in particular are using. People have used to get off opiates. It's helping them with anxiety, depression. There's some negatives too. I've never tried it, but I've been learning more about it just to get a good view on it. And I believe it was an NBC headline a few years back that kratom was linked to 8 different recent deaths, and people are dying from this drug, which was crazy to me because from the research I did, no one was really dying of this. I read the article, that was the headline, and then I read the article, and I think of 7 of the 8 people who died, they also had opiates in their system. They had heroin in their system. So was it the kratom or was it the other stuff? So yeah, read the full article before you share it, and vote with what you click on, because if you keep clicking on this stuff, that is what people are gonna keep putting out there. These companies and websites thrive on getting clicks. That's how they generate revenue.
Absolutely.
And if that's what you click on, Jack Murphy, who I mentioned before we started recording, who I worked with for many years, he said it best. He told me, and he said it once on our previous podcast, and he's a great journalist. He said, I could write an amazing piece on China and what China is doing to manipulate the dollar and how they're destroying America, and really well researched, and give you all the works cited for this. And he said, then I could write a piece about, and he said, some douchebag at the mall dressed up as an army ranger, some stolen valor thing. And he goes, I know for a fact that's the one you guys are going to click on, not the piece that I really spent all this time on. So don't tell me this isn't what you guys want to read. This is what you want to read. This is what gets the clicks. And so if you really hate that this is what's out there, and these are the type of stories that are out there, and you keep clicking on them or sharing them to be like, look at what these idiots said, you're not helping the cause.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you fully. On that. But, and it's true, the technology of the little guys, they're so far ahead than when we were running around. I remember the first computer that came out, it was big. And and we only had like 3 in the library, and you had to go in there with a big floppy disk and stick it in there. And it took you forever to do just, and it was just ridiculous. Have you seen the movie? You've seen it, Aliens.
I don't know if I've seen it. I remember though.
And you see they're supposed to be so advanced, and you see the computer screen, and it's one of those 286s that they used to come out, and it's one letter comes out every 10 seconds. Yeah. And you know what I'm saying? So you're like, everything is so advanced. The little guys, you see 2-year-olds running around they're already messing around with an iPhone of their mom. They're already playing a game. The technology, the advancement of it is so far ahead. It's changing daily.
Yeah. Yeah, it's changing faster than ever before, I would say, because what you're describing that you saw as a kid isn't that much different than what I had as a young kid. Because I think technology in those years, probably between the 60s to the early 90s, right? It didn't change that much. I still had the blue screen when I went to school. I didn't have it in my home. The blue screen Mac with the floppy disk, same thing. You type in the program name. And then I would say, yeah, from probably, I would guess like early to mid 2000s to now, it just has rapidly changed. And I don't know if it's good, because I also don't want people living on this device. To me, I mean, my favorite way of even doing radio or podcast would be if I was over there with you in Texas and
Absolutely.
doing this in person. This is not my favorite way of doing it. I do miss the days of going into a studio, and there are studios here in New York City, and I'm going to try to get back to doing more in studio when I can. But I don't like being this reliant on technology. Even like, I love going out to the gym and meeting people and working out with them in person and going for a run around the neighborhood, which I see some people doing now, as opposed to everybody now on their Peloton or doing it through Nintendo Wii or something. I never want to be just someone who's tied to my house at all times. That is not good for mental health.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And but things are that way, you know. I remember when my wife teaches capoeira, and she's tremendous at it. And
What is it for?
capoeira is a martial art from Brazil. It looks like a dance.
Okay.
Okay? It was camouflaged as a dance when they had some of the slave uprisings and some of the uprisings from the sailors and the dockhands in Salvador and in Rio. It's an interesting martial art, some connection to Africa and some connection to the sailors, just ruffians. So it's a fascinating art, really, when you look at it and the whole culture behind it, the subculture that exists. Every martial arts that way, you know. That's what I've been finding out. But everybody says, let's do a Zoom class, and she's like, well, that you're not going to learn it. But you know,
Yeah.
she starts doing it, and everybody tries to mimic it, and then she goes in there, and she has a big TV, and she's trying to get all the students to do the same thing, and she's just going crazy. I said, I wish everybody could be here.
Yeah, I'm a certified personal trainer. I'm not currently training people, but I agree. You kind of have to see exactly how they're moving, what they're feeling as they're doing it. It's a very physical thing. Yeah, it's definitely not the same. I think we're supposed to be among other people, interacting, being out in nature. We're not supposed to be 100% tied to these devices at all time. I remember even when I bought my Jeep, they wanted me to have some device in there where in order to use the navigation, your cell phone has to be on you, and you know, the Bluetooth and I don't even like having all that, and I don't, because I asked them not to do all that, because there's times I want to go for a drive around my neighborhood and I don't want my cell phone on me. I just want to zone out for a little bit. I think it's important to spend some time where you're not tied to these devices.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell me one thing. What's your next projects coming up? What are your projects for this upcoming year? The
You know,
finale.
it's funny that you asked that, because I do want to launch another podcast. I mean, I do things other than Battle Line. I do it in the wild for narrative.fm, and I do a lot of shows with them. I'm working on like a two-part piece on John McAfee,
Sure.
on his background, the software developer who recently allegedly killed himself, depending on what sources you've heard on that, because that's a whole nother thing. But I want to launch another podcast, and I haven't really spoken about it much. But the idea that I have in mind is this past year and a half, everybody, I think a lot more regular people who aren't involved in the finance field have gotten involved in cryptocurrency and NFTs and the stock market. And the fact that if you would have put your stimulus check, at all of us, into Bitcoin or Dogecoin or any of these things, we would have a lot more money right now. I don't know if I'd say you'd be rich, but you'd be a lot better off. And I think people learning about investment more than ever before, people that never thought about it, including myself, I want to do something in that realm. And
Sure.
I want to do it as someone who is not an expert, who has no background in business. And I want to talk to other people like that, because if you go on YouTube, like there's this, I'll give you an example. If you go on YouTube, you can look up this girl, Living with Lucy. She's just a regular girl, I believe in California, and working a regular job. And I think she put, I don't know, $10,000 or $20,000 into Dogecoin, and she became a Dogecoin millionaire at one point. I don't know if she is now, but she had over $1 million in her Robinhood account. And like, it's just crazy to think regular people could become millionaires off these cryptocurrencies and stocks. And why not learn about it? Because we were never taught about this stuff in school, and
No,
it's constantly changing. So yeah, I want more and more regular people to know about it, because I think the US dollar is collapsing. And rather than have these debates over, oh, should the minimum wage be $15 or $20? I think whatever you're making, if you put that money into something else, that's probably the better thing to do than to be fighting for a few extra dollars. That's the real thing that might actually change, is, you know, this whole debate on income inequality. You could be pretty poor and make the right investment, and you could be the American dream.
absolutely. And then you
So that's
said
the
it.
next thing for me I want to work on.
Yeah, and you said it, and I wish you well, and I wish you great success with that podcast. I think you're hitting on something there that many have not. And like you said, the American dream. Anybody
Yeah.
can get that American dream. There's
Yeah.
something in life that you're just walking, it clicks off, and you take off on it. And many people do those and accept those sudden detours in their life and become millionaires. You know, some other people just say, "No, I'm not going to go there." But whether it was fear or not, and they keep on going and they stay where they're at, instead of, I'm not trying to say impulse, but at least understanding and say, you know what, my gut feeling says that's going to make me millions. Let's go this way. Understand what I'm saying? It's going to make me a success. Or you know what, if I should have taken that chemistry class instead of taking basket weaving, I would have. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now it could have sparked me up for me to become a doctor, in which now I'm over here trying to figure out if I'm going to go have a job next week. Understand? So there's a lot of things in life that the chances are given to us all the time. Do we accept those chances and take off with it or not?
Yeah,
So
that
that
is it is the great thing about capitalism, which there's a lot of negativity about, especially online and in the mainstream media, about, oh, the evils and the terrible things about capitalism. When, yeah, the great thing is that opportunity to fail, that opportunity to change course and to learn about new things along the way. It's always evolving. There's always new things you could do to better yourself in life. As you said, whether it's education, whether it's investing in the right thing, whether it's starting off a podcast that is huge, that becomes, you know, you hear about these shows on Spotify. Joe Rogan, I think, just signed $100 million contract. That girl from the Call Her Daddy show, that might not be a show you or I listen to, but she made, I think, $60 million in a contract. Who would think I think girl in her 20s doing a sex show, it would be making $60 million on Spotify? Some people might be like, oh, well, this is the state of the world, this is what sells. That's a whole nother debate. But the fact that it's out there and that people could start something that becomes that big, I think is pretty cool. I do like that. Once again, it might not be my favorite content, but yeah, this opportunity people have to start something new now more than ever. You could start something without the backing of a corporation, without being tied to a large company, and you could really do it on your own, which is always going to be harder, but it's more freedom.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you most. I tell my guys in there, they come in there, you know what? Why don't you go pick up a trade? If you're not doing anything, and you have all this free time, pick up a trade. I told one of my students several years ago, you know what? You're always going with me to the ranch. You're always field dressing animals. You're always asking about taxidermy. There's a taxidermy school 100 miles over here. Why don't you, let's go over there, take a look at it. We went over there. He became a taxidermist, making
Wow.
money on the side, making money on the side, because here in Texas, hunting's a big industry.
Yeah.
Understand? And so that's something that people do not understand. You know, look at things that have failed, that have gone under. And I look at it here in Laredo. And if there's folks listening here in Laredo, pay attention to what I'm going to say. I deal, and a lot of businesses deal with regular silkscreen shirts.
Sure.
Okay. There's no operating silkscreen shirt. company, small business here in Laredo. Everybody closed doors and never reopened after COVID. There's one that's high expensive and he's making a killing. Learn how to do that if you have extra time. They do all the cheerleading, they do all the moms and pops football for all the schools. They have to go in there. How many high schools do we have in here? We have 8 just in Laredo. So there's a lot of potential there if you want to go get it. You have to just study it and take it and go forward.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think there's a lot of people who spend time thinking, I wish I would have done this in my younger years, or I wish I would have made this decision, when we have the potential to do something every day that's great. If you want to learn another language, go out and do it. If you want to study for something new, you might not even need to go to school. You could go on YouTube every day and learn new things. So it's not even an issue of money. And you could get in the best shape of your life. When I go to UFC gym by me, there's a ton of guys I see who are amputees. They lost a leg. I don't know what it's from. Sometimes it might be combat. I know a guy lost one in a car accident, for example, and they are kicking ass and they're in the best shape of their life, as opposed to the completely able-bodied person who is wasting that body and on their couch watching Fox News or CNN or whatever their choice is, probably 9 hours a day. So yeah, every day, I mean, you have the capability to do something to expand your mind, to better your body. If you want to spend time reading the Bible, if that's what you're into, or reading about other religions, I mean, just use that time as your potential. That's the greatest resource all of us have is time. And when they lock you up in prison, that's what they do. They basically, you lose your time. That's the greatest punishment anyone could give you. So are you spending your time today the most valuable way that you can? You got to ask yourself that all the time. I try my best to, and we all have days where we do waste a lot of time. But yeah, that someone is always training better than you, whether it's in boxing or hunting or anything like that. There's always someone who's going to be working harder than you. So you got to get out there and get it.
Absolutely. Either training or shooting at the range or what have you.
Yeah, 100%.
There's always something. You can always adjust yourself, build yourself a little bit better. But the thing is, it has to come from you. You have to have it. That motivation. It's yours. Nobody else can give that motivation to you. Nobody.
No, you could read all the books, listen to all the self, motivating podcasts and YouTube, but yeah, at a certain point, you got to get out there
and you have to do it yourself. I tell my guys, I can teach you how to fight, and I will teach you how to fight, but I'm not going to fight for you.
You got to have Jim West on your podcast, by the way, because he is a not only special forces, but a fighting legend from bar fighting in his younger years to training guys in the UFC, training boxers.
Sure.
You would love him. I got to connect you too.
For sure. I see the guys over here. I made a patch. I'll send it to you. I made a patch and people get mad. I'll send you and Chris one. And it says, Professor says no pocket pool. Don't play pocket pool. The professor says don't play pocket pool. And it's a little patch, a little blue patch up there. And they'll wear it in the uniform because I keep telling them, hey, raise those hands. I don't want you guys playing pocket pool. And it's a funny story. A mom came in and she's from Ecuador, and she came in with her kid. And the kid went over there, and she comes back and she tells me in front of the other girls that we're all training. Goes, Professor, what does pocket pool mean? And I started laughing, and one of the girls told her in Spanish, and she started laughing as well. And that's why. But it's not no insult, it's just something that goes out there because, folks, if you're gonna fight, you have to put up your hands.
Yeah.
You have to protect your computer, and if you don't do that, you're gonna get hit. And It's not my fault you got hit. It's your fault because you didn't pick up your hand. So start learning.
Do you still fight yourself, or you just teach right now?
No, I teach. I mean, I train. I spar. Yes, I spar all the time. Fighting. The last fight I had was in Tournai, Belgium. Was in '94. Okay. And then after that, I blew my hand. I don't know if you can see that. I had an accident in Dallas that I had 11 reconstructive surgeries. So it took me off that. That one time I was going for a title bout that same year in '94. Never fought for it. You know, that's just the way it was. You know, the doctor told me I could never use my hand again. And what happens is that right after that, after so many surgeries, I said, you know what, we're going to start building fighters. And that's what happened. And we did. That was before UFC came on board. You know, Savate was coming in there. Texas right now is the only state in the nation that allows Savate, because Savate kicks to the legs, uses shoe. So it's a little bit different, you know, than the rest of the arts, but you know, it's something that fulfills it. It's gotten me into and out of trouble, you know. So I think it's an art that it's an old art, it's an old rich art, has a history that I've done and research done. It's probably the oldest of the arts that's here. You know, some people say the Chinese, but the French were here for long before that, you know. Some people say that one of Leclerc, which was a professor in the early 1900s, he taught Roosevelt Sabat. People say Roosevelt did jujitsu as well. So he was very much into pugilism. So let's see, you know, thing is that Sabat is one of the rare arts. People that are involved in the arts understand it exists, but it's a rarity, yes, per se.
That's
You know,
great.
The French Foreign Legion uses it. My professor was a commander of the what is called RAD, the anti-terrorist police of France.
Okay.
Named Robert Paturel, great individual, still alive. One of the best police officers I've ever seen. I've seen them. I've seen their training. It's something that's what it's for. Anti-terrorism.
Yeah.
You know, and that was back in the 90s. You know, and here we didn't have that word. Over there they use and police for anti-terrorist police force. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And here we never even heard of that until after 9/11.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
everything changed. I know, you know, I am old enough to have seen all that and to have experienced the time where you went through an airport and you didn't take your shoes off and you didn't have x-rays and they didn't pat you down, going to a baseball game, going to a concert. Yeah, it changed everything.
It changed everything. So, and it's going to change more. It's going to get worse,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yep. I think you're right.
You know, God bless us. And once more, God bless all the veterans that you bring on board and tell their stories and continue doing with what you do. You know, you're doing.
You too. You too. No, I everything that you're telling me, I completely appreciate what you guys are doing out there. I think it's excellent. You know, there's a guy in Santa Fe, New Mexico, who I know, Rick Iannucci, who's a former Green Beret, and he has an organization called Horses for Heroes, and he goes out with his ranch and he brings veterans on board, and they do that equine therapy. They ride horses, and it's therapeutic to them, guys with post-traumatic stress and issues like that. So the point is kind of going back to what we said earlier in the interview. There's so many different ways to help veterans, I think, and to help these great organizations. So yeah, I love what you're doing out there.
Thank you. And this is our 600th episode, you know.
Wow. That's crazy.
But we started off just as a hobby, and also just kind of kept on going. And like I said, you have to continue putting out the content. You have to continue searching for folks out there that are doing something positive, like yourself and Chris. And God bless you all for what you do.
Well, congrats on 600 episodes. That's great. And yeah, we will definitely have Chris on at some point. I just know for a fact, because he's had other people reach out to him, that once like late November, things are going to calm down a little bit and he'll definitely come on. Hopefully. Yeah. So I'll talk to him. I'll let him know. I mean, this was a lot of fun and also that you're doing great things. And plus you guys also have the Latino connection. There's not a lot of like Latinos out there in the veteran sphere.
You know, I'm not a veteran. You know,
but I say the sphere, you interview veterans.
Yeah. And we train them. I train guys that are active right now as well. So, you know, that's a way, you know, my guy in maybe I'll connect you to him. He's 8 months old. He's a lieutenant commander over in his name's Patrick Gavin in Chicago area, and he has something called I don't know if it's something Hawk Project for Veterans, Hawkeye or Hawk Wind or something Hawk. And I think it's something that he's been working with. He was one time stationed at Great Lakes,
Okay.
out of Chicago. So I'll send him all your contact. Maybe you guys can do something about that because he is a veteran.
Cool.
He was in Gitmo. We can talk a little bit about that.
That would be cool.
Okay. All righty. You stay safe. You all be safe and keep on doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And thank you for coming on board. And we'll see you all
Anytime.
soon. We'll see it all soon. And if you have something new, some new plans, just say, you know what? We want to announce this or announce a new other podcast. Come on board.
Cool. Yeah, I'll come on for that. I have like the whole idea in my head. I have it all mapped out. I just gotta make it happen. So yeah, I will. That'll be a good one. And we're still gonna continue doing what we're doing, Chris and I. That's not stopping. So
Absolutely.
we're about to hit
All right.
100 episodes. So not quite 600. We're about to hit 100.
Yeah, it's still gay. Yeah, I remember when I was about to hit 100.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, it's gonna hit 100, and now I'm gonna hit 200. And then all of a sudden, the other day I was working down. I was just doing the little, the thumbnails for YouTube, and wow, I'm gonna hit 600.
Yeah, that's a good 600 plus hours that people could listen to of you. I mean, it's crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy. Anyway, until next time, much peace.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, talk to you again.
Bye-bye.